Welcome to the Richmond Film Network podcast, your all-access pass to the world of independent cinema. Each week, we go beyond the credits and sit down with the creatives who turn vision into reality. Tune in weekly to find out who's on the RFN pod.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning into the Richmond Film Network podcast. I'm Lisa Giles, and with me today are Adam Lapallo and Rachel Weatherly, co-directors of the short film Maggie Campbell, which screened at RFN Indie Fest this past May 17th. Welcome, Adam and Rachel.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So Maggie Campbell was the second film that each of you has screened at Indie Fest. Adam, of course, yours was in our very first series, in our very first season, A Moment of Your Time. And Rachel, you were just with us in February with Blowhard, which you co-directed with.
Yeah.
So, and of course, you've both participated in 48-hour film projects, which I produce. So I'm pretty familiar with your work. And I know both of you are accomplished writers, but Maggie Campbell was not written by either of you. So how did this script land in your lap, and how did you end up co-directing it together?
Yeah, so Rachel and I met at the Virginia Screenwriters Forum. And yeah, we're both primarily screenwriters. We've both branched out into directing and producing the past couple of years, as have a lot of people at VSF lately. And one of the offshoots of that has been that we now, every year, we organize an annual short film showcase where we get together at a theater and we screen all of the short films that have been written by members of VSF that have been produced that year. And so kind of with that idea with the showcase, some of our members had the idea that we wanted to do something nice for our friend Eric. He was one of the founding members of VSF. He was the director for many, many years. And he's like an incredible writer. He's won contests and met with agents and had plenty of meetings with producers and things, but he had never actually had a script produced at that point. So the thought was, what if VSF could come together as an organization and we could produce one of his short scripts and feature it in the showcase? And so it was a highly collaborative project. We had people chipping in with locations, actors, connections, really anything they had to help us out. Eric handpicked Rachel and myself to co-direct the film, which was really special to be asked to do that. So yeah, it's kind of a long series of events, but certainly a very, very exciting process.
So he handpicked you to co-direct. So that was his choice to have you both in that role?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was that your first time co-directing a film together?
Yeah, I think it was our first time co-directing together. And then for me, co-directing in general, like I had never done it before. And I think Adam, for you too, that was your first time doing it as well. But it was one of those things that we wouldn't have said no to it anyway. But it was like in the middle of a VSF meeting, he was like, and I want you two to do it. And we're like, well, okay. In front of like 30 people. And you're like, okay, well, it's like getting proposed to in a public place. It's like, I'm not going to say no to that. Let's do it. So it was really exciting. Yes. Yeah. I kid, but it was really exciting.
Yeah. And it was not only our first time co-directing anything. I think it was also for both of us, our first time directing a script that we didn't also write.
Yeah.
So it was like on several levels. It was a very new process for both of us, I think.
We'll talk about that process. How does that happen? You've never co-directed. You have this project handed to you. How does that get delegated? Yeah, who decides what to do, when, and how?
Well, so I felt very much initially like I was following a lot of Adam's lead because he had produced quite a few things. I work in advertising and marketing, so I had done some things like that, but I had never. Working on a narrative is very different than working on like a training video commercial or something like that. And Adam had done so many of his own, like A Moment of Your Time and all these other ones, and had experience working with a bigger crew. And when I had made things in the past, it had been like me and like two other people. So I really leaned on Adam's understanding and knowledge for the first part of the process. And we would get together, I think over Zoom and in person, and go over things and split up different things. Adam's obviously very well known in the film community, knows a lot of people. So yeah, we were kind of running with Adam's expertise and going from there. And then on the 2 days that we shot, it ended up working out really well that like Adam took on one day and then I led the other day. So it was like when one of us were getting tired, you tag out and the other person comes in. So in that way, the process worked pretty seamlessly.
Yeah, I think how we initially split it up was that Rachel was going to focus more on the actors, I was going to focus more on the crew, and then like, of course over time both those roles kind of bled into each other quite a lot. Like she said, it became a process of there would be, some moments on set where I had a pretty firm hand on what I knew needed to be done. And so it kind of, you reach a point pretty quickly where there can be too many cooks in the kitchen. So it's like, okay, I'm just going to grab the reins real quick and get us where we need to go. And then once I'm done and I collapse from exhaustion, Rachel is there to be the reinforcements and carry us the rest of the way. And so, yeah, it was really much just a process of, I think, leaning on each other and trusting each other and kind of working with a shared vision. We had the advantage too of we had collaborated on plenty of things before, not in that capacity, but helped out on each other's films. We've read each other's scripts quite a lot and given feedback. So I think we had a good sense of each other's creative language going into it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
So, Adam, you mentioned, I think it was in your director's statement, that directing a script that you didn't write was a completely new experience for you. So how did that challenge or expand your usual creative process?
So I was fortunate enough to be able to go to the Austin Film Festival, I think only a couple of weeks before we started shooting, but I got to meet one of my favorite writers and directors there, and I actually got to ask him in person, how do you approach directing a movie that you wrote versus a movie that you didn't? And he gave me some really useful insights on that. He kind of said that when you're directing something that you wrote, you're building it from the ground up. You're laying the foundation and then you're building from that. If you're being given a script that you're directing, you're working from the top down. Like you're sort of drilling into it and finding what was the writer's intention, what can you add to the scene, and just building a process from that. So I think it has definitely transformed my view of directing. Specifically, like, I knew already how to write a scene, I knew how to make a character three-dimensional, I knew how to create conflict. Learning the actual adaptation process of not just taking what's in my head and putting it on screen, but taking something that somebody has laid out and turning that into something visual and creating a visual language for that piece. And again, discerning what the writer was intending and what I could bring to it. I definitely think it made me a much stronger director having done this.
So have you come away with a preferred method, doing your own or doing someone else's?
I still very much prefer directing my own scripts, I'll be honest. I am directing another project that was somebody else's script this weekend, actually. And so I'm excited to apply what I learned there to this next shoot. But if given the choice, if I have my own script to produce, that's definitely where I'm happiest.
Yeah, I would say that I'm also happiest doing that too. Because so much of writing is rewriting. And as we were going through the script, just like breaking it down, there were so many things that I just had this impulse to like change. And that's, not part of the gig, really. I know that for some directors, that is what they end up doing and really imposing their own selves into a story that's already written. And there's probably a place for that sometimes. But yeah, especially with it being Eric's thing and Adam and I doing this together, I was like, I have to keep telling myself, and he had to keep telling me to, like, let's not like go too far into changing this, because there's always your own stamp that you want to put on things too. So it's really hard to control that when it's like not your thing and you're being more of a steward of somebody else's story in that way versus making it your own. And I feel like there's maybe almost two camps of like directing somebody else's thing. Do they want you to put your stamp on it, or are you just sort of being a conduit for their story and you're just, getting it on the screen? So
I do think that stamp is on it, though. Like, when I watch Maggie Campbell, obviously I can see Eric's story, I can see his vision coming through.
Yeah.
But I can also see myself in it quite a lot, and I can see a lot of you, too. Like, I can see a lot of choices that were yours, and I can tell they're yours because they were not things I could have ever come up with.
Let's dig into that. So the log line is: a murdered woman's spirit seeking retribution confronts her killer when he returns to the scene of his crime. Okay. Adam, what is your stamp and what is Rachel's stamp?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't want to spoil too much of the movie, but there's sort of the way the third act is kind of constructed. There's a gunshot and there's a cut to black and there's a voiceover, and the music swells in a very particular way and then drops out, and the sound design builds and then drops in a very particular way, in a way that I just love doing in my movies, of like just like build and build and build and then rip it all away really quickly. So I watched that bit and I go, yeah, that's an Lapallo thing. That's how I know this is my movie.
Rachel?
One of the things that I can think of that I worked on, especially just in the writing phase, and it's again in the third act, in the character development of both the killer and the ghost. Again, not to spoil things, but I feel like it added layers of his history and the victim's history to make her less of just like this woman who died and more of a layered portrayal of who she might have been. Because I think it's really easy, especially at the serial killer movie, to focus a lot on the killer and less on the victim. And I think even in earlier drafts of this film, it's still really heavily focused on the guy who kills Maggie and less on Maggie, even though she's the titular character. So there were like certain tweaks to the script that ended up in the film that I think gave her a little bit more life, so to speak.
So, Rachel, you had said that co-directing with Adam taught you a lot about collaboration and shared vision. What would you say was the most rewarding part of your partnership?
It was 2 days of just a lot of growth. It was really learning to lean on people, remembering that like filmmaking is a collaborative process more than anything, and knowing that Adam was there to fall back on and rely on. And if we were going to make a dumb decision, we were making it together, both feet in, and we're going to agree on it. And if I was going to make a dumb decision on my own, he was going to, pull me back to the center, sort of a thing. And it's like being sure that you can rely on somebody, and it allows you to be more creative too, because there's no stupid mistakes. If you're doing it together, you're having fun, you're learning along the way. And yeah, I just learned so much from those 2 days. It's really hard to like encapsulate that into one statement, because it was really a wholeheartedly rewarding experience.
Maggie Campbell is very atmospheric and moody, and of course, sound and lighting play such a key role in achieving that mood. How did you approach those technical elements and others to heighten that impact in delivering the story?
So Eric's one request for this movie was that it be done in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
He felt very strongly that it should be a black and white movie. That was what he wanted to see. That was his vision. Black and white movie is also something that we had never done before.
A black and white movie at nighttime. Yeah.
Right.
So I think that was sort of the nexus point where sort of that atmospheric quality came from.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're in black and white, you need good lighting. You need strong diagonals, you need deep shadows, all those things. And so the aesthetic and the lighting we created ended up becoming very neo-noir. And I think just the more we kind of snowballed off of that first idea of black and white, the more this started to feel like, a classic film noir piece. And that was just such a fun thing to play with, tonally and aesthetically, in the trailer and the poster and the titles. Like approaching it from that angle of like, oh, this is 1930s. This is the Maltese Falcon type of a tone. And yeah, and I showed all of that to our composer Casey, and he had some really great ideas for just some really unique sounds in the music that could bring out that quality in it. Our sound designer Jacob, he did some really cool stuff again with just that sort of gritty texture of it. And I think that speaks to learning about directing as a separate process from writing, because those aren't things you really think about too much when you're writing.
What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced during production, particularly with the supernatural elements? Or were there any? Or fun moments?
Cool.
Definitely, I think the scene that takes place as the most supernatural moment takes place in the back of the car, and that was shot in my garage with tarps or big sheets around to create that, really dark blackness, the void. But I mean, that was really challenging because, you have a bunch of actors in a car, and then you have the crew surrounding the actors, and the rear view mirror only goes so far and certain things don't come. It's like they're just very little things here and there. But I think it was like that, and just with the lighting and being able to see like Terry's eyes in the darkness and making sure that like the makeup looked close to what we were trying to get. Just really trying to make her look like a ghost, and working in that tight garage space. And it was a really cold night, and everyone wanted to be in the garage. There's only so much space.
Just the cold for sure. Because we shot this in November, and so that scene out by the river, of course, even if you start right at sundown, you're gonna be there until at least midnight, 1 a.m. in 20-degree weather. We're all bundled up and we're trying to shoot as fast as we can. Poor Terry has her one scene out there where she's just wearing that like thin dress and not much else. So basically we had her wrapped up in like 5 coats, and then we started rolling, we took off the coats, sent her in, cold cut, ran in, wrapped her back up again.
Yeah.
And just like figuring out how to run power that far away from the house, and how long do batteries last in that kind of weather, and how do we keep the place lit and the cameras charged. And we actually use the headlights from some of the cars to light quite a lot of the scene because they were there and they were available. Normally you can't do that on a shoot because the color temperature of the headlights interferes with the practical lights of the set. But if it's black and white, you don't have that problem. So blast away, and very cool night.
You had both described this film as a labor of love. Can you elaborate what that means to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think this really was a love letter to the VSF and to Eric, and to kind of at how we've sort of grown as a group in the last few years. Yeah. Eric has always been a huge mentor to me in my screenwriting ever since I joined VSF when I was like 21, I think, right out of college. He just like right from the beginning, he really took me under his wing. He, read my scripts, gave me feedback. He wrote recommendation letters for grants and things I was applying to. It was just from day one, he has always been very much in my corner. And so having the opportunity to be able to repay him in some way was a very special thing to do.
Yeah, I, couldn't agree more. Eric has been in my corner the same way throughout my time at VSF as well. Like, he's always just been so kind and so giving of his time. It's almost just like the least you can do to like give him your time back too. That's like one of the most valuable things, is not only to give your time, but to like make something together, right? It's like being able to collaborate in that way. And he was just there on set for both of the days and just taking it all in. And he just seemed to be having so much fun, like we were too. So, I mean, you can't really ask for anything more than like making movies with your friends. So it was great.
What's been the most rewarding feedback or reaction that you've gotten?
For me, I would say really from Eric. If Eric's happy with it, then I couldn't be happier with it, no matter what happens to it. Like I just wanted him to be happy at the end of the day. And to feel proud of what he was seeing, and to be excited to watch it back, and to have that always in his pocket as something that's his. So I totally see it. I don't know if you feel the same way, Adam, but like as much as it is like ours, I really see it as like, this is Eric's, this is for Eric.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. If Eric's happy, I'm happy. That was the important thing.
You had mentioned that your preference to producing your own scripts over someone else's. What about directing together or separately? Since it worked out so well, it sounds like it was a really great collaboration. Would you do it again? And
yeah,
no, I would do it again. We've talked about it.
I think just kind of waiting for the right script or the right project at the right time to try something, but
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, no, for sure. And after co-directing with Adam, I was able to do it with Joey on my Joey Tran too. And I was able to bring a lot of what I learned with Adam into that experience as well, and just going into something without an ego and a collaborative spirit, and like seeing what can happen.
So Adam, I know you've been working on a feature, Untouchable. Would you like to give us an update where you are with that project?
Yeah, so earlier this year I finished up post-production on a proof of concept short film for a feature script called Untouchable. It's a sports drama about competitive fencing. The short film is hitting the festival circuit very soon. Hopefully I'll have news soon about premiere dates and all that. Yeah, it was a really special project on a lot of levels. We crowdfunded over $18,000 for it. we had an international cast that includes a member of the U.S. World fencing team. And yeah, it was a bigger project than I've taken on before. It was a more personal project than I've taken on before, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'm very excited for taking the next few steps towards getting funding together for the feature, continuing that story.
And likewise, I believe, Rachel, you have a similar story with expanding a short into a feature.
So it was 2023, but I made a short film, which was a proof of concept for a feature called The Downline, which I'm actually changing the name of it to something a little bit less niche, I hope. But in any case, I've been working on expanding that into a feature-length script. I had expanded it into one that was pretty big and extensive that took place within a multi-level marketing scheme. And the women in it that create these very predatory transactional relationships with each other and the devastation that can be wrought as a result. And my initial vision for the feature was that it would take place at one of these MLM conferences that the people in MLMs pay a lot of money to go to, but to make it a little bit smaller scale, a little bit more accessible to create, I've been paring down the script to just make it a little bit more accessible to me to actually figure out how to make. So it would take place at, one of the car parties, the Mary Kay pink convertible car party type thing. And it would be very much in the style of like a Shiva Baby or like an anxiety movie that takes all place in the afternoon, maybe an hour and 15 minutes long. You're in and you're out. So yeah, I'm working on expanding that. I'm working on recutting the short film too to make it a little bit shorter. I worked with a local songwriter to create a empowerment theme for it, that's like a bit of a delusional empowerment theme. So I'm really excited to like add that into the movie. That's just like a fun new element to explore.
And the short was just featured on a short film housing site, right?
Yeah. It just got featured on a website called shorted.com. They wrote a really great review to go along with it, which was pretty cool. And then as a result of that, I got an Instagram account that reviews films that's out in the UK. And they wrote another really great review about it too. So I feel like there's a little bit of momentum picking back up after, a year of it sort of sitting. So it's one of those stories that it continues to nag at me, and I don't want it to go away until I've completely told the rest of it and have been able to share it more broadly with people.
If I know creative people, then I know you're probably working on other things as well. Adam, you said that you've got something that you're shooting this weekend. Can you talk about that or any other?
Yes, it's a music video that's written and starring David Patrick Whittle. He's also a member of BSF, actually, and he's a very good friend of mine. So he wrote this script. It's kind of written around a song that he wrote that was inspired by an experience a friend of his had. And so when he approached me about potentially directing it, best way to spend time with somebody, in my opinion, is to work on something together. So yeah, I got that coming up. My production group from the 48-Hour Film Project, Fourth Floor Films, we have officially incorporated as a production company, and we're starting to branch out into bigger endeavors, and hopefully I'll have news to share on that in the near future.
That's so exciting.
Rachel, do you have any other irons in the fire?
Yeah, I feel like I always have a couple irons in the fire. I am currently working on a script with my manager, who I secured literary representation. It was in 2023. I feel like was a big year for me. So I've been in development with something with him for the past year and a half. So hopefully being able to go out with that soon. I'm workshopping a couple feature ideas to start writing on, but trying to, determine which one I'd like to write, but they're all sort of in the same vein of like contained psychological thriller space, just always writing.
Well, Adam and Rachel, this has been fun learning more about what you're working on. Where can our viewers follow your work?
So you can follow me on Instagram at Adam_Lapallo. If you want more updates on Untouchable as that plays out, that's untouchable.movie on Instagram and untouchable-shortfilm on Facebook. And then Fourth Floor Films is fourth_floor_studios on Instagram, and you can see more stuff we're working on there.
Rachel?
I just followed that one earlier today.
I saw.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited for you guys. That's really cool. Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Rachel Weatherly, and then I believe it's the same thing on YouTube. There might be an underscore in there or a dash, but I don't think so. So yeah, I'm only really on those two. I used to be on Twitter until that all changed. So
Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Richmond Film Network podcast. Thanks to our guest and to you, our listeners, for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share. Tune in next week to see who's on the RFN pod. Until then, keep the cameras rolling.